hello everyone who all are joining us for this live stream. And today we have with us Mark Smargon. He is the founder of Fuse Network, and he is here to talk about the Fuse Amber network, which is a new zkEVM layer 2 network developed on Polygon CDK and Avail being its data availability layer. So Fuse Amber was developed in partnership with QuickNode on our Rollup as a service platform, basically Rollup's platform. So Mark has been working with our team from a very long time now developing this network. Obviously, Mark has been working on developing the network way before then coming to us, but he came to us when they were ready to launch the network. So Mark
Yes.
today we'll be talking about like what is Fuse Amber network and how is it different from the main Fuse network, and what you should know, what you should keep in mind when you are transitioning from the Fuse network to Fuse Amber. How is it different? All of that. So first of all, thank you so much, Mark, for joining us
Of
and
course.
agreeing to do this. And now I will pass it on to you so that you can greet the audience, you can talk about Fuse Network, you can talk about yourself, and then finally enlighten us about the Fuse Amber Network. So, all yours, Mark. The stage is all yours.
Thanks, Sahil. So, hi everybody. We are very proud to launch Ember. It's been a cumulative work of many people, but mostly it's been a really long research process. We evaluated pretty much every product out there. We deployed optimistic rollup. We deployed zk stack. We used different approaches. We even played with Cosmos for a bit. And just to explain or give you a little bit of an insight why we chose Polygon CDK, maybe it's good to rewind a bit on how we started and what we're doing and what we accomplished in the last 5 years, which I think is really interesting because I think nowadays people definitely talk a lot about stuff that we've been kind of doing for the last 5 years. I think now it's starting to be really, really sexy or fashionable. But 5 years ago, I want you to imagine 2019, we launched Fuse. We came to investors. We told them, listen, stablecoins are going to be huge. Blockchains are a good place to store funds, to store money. It's so good that probably a lot of businesses will use it, not only investors. There are going to be different blockchains around different use cases. So I think to a large extent, this vision already happened. You know, we're way past the speculative part. The future is definitely very blockchain. Like people are really hopeful that blockchain technology will help businesses to compete, will help business models launch. Even the United States of America is pushing for blockchain to save the dollar. So I really think that this is an easy sell in 2025, but in 2019 it was really hard to convince people. What we did is we basically decided, okay, EVM is the way to go. How do we launch an EVM? So we needed to fork Ethereum. You got a very, very rudimentary, very basic monolithic architecture. We were thinking about scaling that to an L2 like Optimism, but optimistic rollups are not faster, they're not cheaper, they're not more decentralized than our old L1. Our monolithic L1 is live for the last 5 years. It has millions of users. It has about 100K transactions a day, between 50 and 100, depending on the day, sometimes more, sometimes less, but it's been pretty constant. Even then in the bear market, we saw a lot of usage, and it's very stable, it's very resilient, it's very cheap. We don't need to pay any maintenance fees for this, but we always felt like this is not the future. The future is modular. The future allows us to do transactions off-chain, to use zk tech. So we didn't want to launch to optimistic rollups as a temporary stage. We wanted to go to something that is future-proof and not just sexy, but actually aligned with our objectives. So our objectives is to build a blockchain for businesses. We're launching just a blockchain that is meant for B2B. So I think most blockchains 90% of them are B2B. They're not really consumer facing like people try to tell you. They're built for those businesses. And when we apply this thinking to the real world, what do we run? What Fuse replaces in the real world? Fuse replaces Visa. And this is why we call Fuse as the Stripe of Web3, because we basically look at how Stripe will work if it would be using crypto rails instead of Visa. So Stripe only recently started to support stablecoin payments. So we have a 4-year head start on them. I think as a crypto native protocol, we're well positioned to innovate on this business model. And just to explain to you how this business model works, you can actually take a look on our website and explore all those things that I'm describing. But on our website, there's a section called Console, where you go to this console, you get basically the portal to access our old L1. If you click on Build, you can actually create an operator account. And the whole idea of Fuse is that you basically have a subscription service, a blockchain that you pay $50 a month, and you can actually access all the services, all the middleware, get 1 million user operations a month on the basic plan, which costs $50 a month. There's also other services that you get out of the box for this fee. So for $50, you can also get a million RPC calls and a quota for subgraph calls and also webhooks. So basically, all the middleware access that you need to build your own app, to build your first product on Fuse. This is, I would say, very different to how other chains work, where you only pay the gas, then you need to go to subgraphs provider like the graph and pay for calls with GRT token. So it's very, very complicated if you're a developer to access the middleware. If you specifically need a cross-chain RPC product, then yeah, this is probably something that you're familiar with. Most users, most blockchain developers, they don't really need so many different vendors. They would be happy to get a one-stop shop, just like they have on AWS or Amazon. So really took the Amazon model or the cloud model and the Stripe model and really merged them together. Other than getting access to the middleware, you also get access to a very robust ecosystem that is live for the last 5 years. And the biggest challenge right now is to take all of those integrations and start migrating them to the new chain. So the new chain is going to be launched in parallel with the old L1, and we will basically incentivize people to switch. We recently deployed testnet with the help of QuickNode. You can actually access it here. We're going to push some updates here in the next few days, but here you can get access to the faucet. Also, we're about to introduce a small game that will help stress test the new network. We're rolling this out in the next few days. You can enter your wallet address, get some testnet tokens, and start playing with the chain. One of the things that we really are eager to do is incentivize people to switch. So there's 3 different types of users on Fuse. So we have the operators, which are projects that are building on Fuse. You can check this out if you go to our case study page. You can see some examples in Thailand, in Africa. We have ticketing products and events, and also restaurants. And this is a really cool product that I urge you to download. I can send a link later. If you live in Southeast Asia, this is actually something you can use. It's completely non-custodial, and it has a lot of merchants and games that you can spend crypto locally in Southeast Asia, specifically right now in Thailand, but it's supposed to be all across the Asia Pacific area. This product is I'll share the link afterwards. This is an operator, an example of an operator that runs on Fuse. So this is the first type of user, and those users are going to migrate manually. We're going to to talk with them one by one. Second type of user is a developer. We offer a pretty big prize. Not prize, we offer a grant pool. We're seeking applications that will win an allocation. So we basically want to incentivize people to migrate and build a grants program. And the third type of user is personal investor or the personal developer, somebody that holds Fuse, and we will incentivize them to migrate from the old Fuse to the new Fuse. It's going to be a one-to-one migration with a small incentive for people that look for more time. You can check out our console. This is the product that I'm showing you. And currently, since we're only with the testnet and mainnet is not ready yet, we don't have this migration option. But once we will have the mainnet live, we will offer users to move from the old chain to the new chain, very similar to the Phantom Sonic migration that was done a few months ago. So I'll pause here and see if there's any questions before I move on. I had a quick background about Fuse, talked a bit about why we chose L2 and why we chose QuickNode and why we're using zkEVM, and last thing about the migration.
Yeah. So, Mark, do you want to share a little bit about the DA layer or the data availability layer? What was the thought process and technical choices behind choosing a data availability layer and choosing a specific data availability provider after that?
Yeah.
And like you already said this, but just to be confirmed, once the mainnet is live, you will have a migration tool live, and people would just be able to migrate their contracts or redeploy their contracts without changing anything in their code, because the new chain being a zkEVM chain, there are like very minor or few opcode changes, right? So what about those? Will the migration tool handle those, or people will have to handle those minor manually?
So this is a great question. I think the two main concerns if we wanted to migrate to Optimism, we would probably do it way long time ago. There's a lot of support. It's pretty widely adopted. I think zk rollups in this cycle are where optimistic rollups were in last cycle. And
Yes.
it's very important to understand that that it's not something one company can build. Unlike optimistic rollups, zk rollups is an ecosystem upgrade. It's a system-wide upgrade. It's a bit like how proof of stake replaced proof of work. You have like a big ecosystem around proof of work. You have a big ecosystem now around proof of stake. Proof of stake didn't exist until 2020 something, on Ethereum. It was proof of work. People don't realize how new it is, and already we have something newer. I'm not saying it's exactly the same thing, but it's kind of similar in terms that you require node operators to switch. You require chains and ecosystems to switch. You need hardware, special hardware. And the biggest challenge is if you want to, like most users will encounter zk through bridging, and it's a real big problem if bridges don't exist yet, to have a mainnet, because then once new bridges would launch, if you want to support them natively, you need to redeploy your chain. It's very complicated and risky to bet too early on the wrong player. And it's a bit like a lot of projects like us in 2019 chose other ecosystems that today are dead, like EOS, for instance. In 2019, EOS raised much more money than Ethereum, and it felt like it's gonna win. I'm happy we chose Ethereum, but it's a cautionary tale. You always need to pick correctly. So that was a big issue with us. Like, how do we pick correctly? I think the opcodes issue is the minor issue. The biggest issue is really, do we have rollup as a service support? Like, do they have an ecosystem around them? Are there any other players, that use this and can provide support, like infrastructure providers? This boils down to two players, zk Stack and zk Stack and Polygon. Those are like the two players. We chose to use a DA LDA. First of all, we needed the Validium because Validium can scale to Visa scale, because we want to be a blockchain for businesses, an alternative to Visa. We need to be at least on par with the Visa scalability. The reason we chose Avail, because first of all, they're part of the Polygon ecosystem, and they support CDK. We also chose Radius for MEV. We chose you guys. We did a lot of research on who are the best in class, but also it was really important for us to get people that strategic partners of Polygon, kind of aligned on the vision. We want to be the B2B hub for the Agler. And I think building a blockchain that has stable coins doesn't mean necessarily that your audience, your customer, is a merchant. Merchants, the way they use crypto, they just go to Solana, put an address there, get paid in USDC, and then cash out through Coinbase. This is how payments work in Web3. When you say Web3 payments, this is roughly what you mean. At Fuse, we want to retain those merchants. We don't want them to leave. We don't want them to go away. So what does it mean? We need to have a good business model, like really strong unit economics, like real understanding of what should be the fee, because fees in blockchains, they need to have an equilibrium, at least theoretically. They need to make sense, right? Yeah. So they need to be high enough so people don't spam you, and low enough so people don't fork you. And also they couldn't be too expensive because people can spin up their own app chain. It's a one-click deployment. Like, you need to give value outside of what you're building, a network effect, it's called. So also good to bring a lot of players together with you. Avail has an insanely big and strong community. I would say Avail is the Ethereum version of Celestia. So it's basically the Ethereum or Polygon-friendly version of Celestia. Celestia is Cosmos-based, and it's really, really impressive. It had really impressive growth. I think because rollups are modular, and because this space starts to be a little bit more practical in the problems that we need to solve, Vail has a lot more to offer than just a DA. But even only the DA, it gives us a lot of value, cheap transactions, interoperability. We also use the Vail tech to improve the economics of the chain. So it used to be $300 a month to run a node with the L1. With the L2, it went down to $15 thanks to Avail. So people don't look at like the big picture of what it means to run a network. I think we had one of the most experienced team in the space, being a network operator for the last 5.5 years, really understanding the pains and pros and cons. And I think running like who should be your validator, how governance should work, how do we enable more B2B activity, because in the end of the day, this is not supposed to be consumer facing. Contrary to popular belief, blockchains should not be consumer facing. Just like when users use Stripe, they don't choose to use Stripe. They never choose to use Shopify. They never choose to use, even Uber. If you're coming to a country and this is the only option, you will use Uber. Usually, a lot of those choices are made for the customer. So we're not really pushing a consumer-facing product here. The considerations should be really, really different. So that's, I think, the highlight of the talk.
Understood. Yeah, I mean, I very much and so much agree with your point where blockchains should not be consumer facing. It should not be their choice to use it. Where I always talk about this whenever someone asks me this question, that when do you think blockchain has made it, or when do you think Ethereum has made it? Similar questions, but when do you think blockchain as a tech has made it? So I always give them, or I always say them that I envision a scenario where a day-to-day user like my mom or dad or my friends who are non-technical, who are not into crypto or who are not in technical backgrounds, whenever they are using their daily consumer apps, and those apps are powered by blockchain, but they don't even know, they are just using it like normal apps, I think that will be the time when we can say yes, crypto has like finally made it. But still, we will have long way to go. But I think that during that time, we can be saying comfortably that yes, crypto has made it, or blockchain as a tech has made it.
100%. I also think that that this is there are signs that you can see. I know it's a bit abstract, but I think developers, they think in abstract. Like it's natural for developers to think in abstract way.
Yeah.
And if you look at different cycles, because I've been in the space for the last 12 years, this is not my first or second company that is doing payments, but I never thought we need to build a blockchain for payments. Like maybe at the beginning we advertised it as a blockchain for payments because there was not a lot of other blockchains. But I think gaming blockchain also need payments. A gambling blockchain also need payments. Payments is not really a vertical, right? It's not a specific idea. Finance,
Yeah.
payments, those are very general concepts. DeFi is also very general. I think what we see in this cycle, signs that we're getting in the right direction, in my opinion. Why I'm bullish? Because if we compare it with the last cycle, we see a big difference in narratives. Like we had a lot of discussion about ideas in the last 10 years since Bitcoin was born about on-chain IPOs and different ideas like NFTs and stable coins and lending and like decentralized lending and over collateralized lending and things like crypto insurance, like with Nexus Mutual, concentrated liquidity with UniV3. A lot of the stuff we had in DeFi was very, very speculative on paper. Like stablecoins
Yeah.
was something that Vitalik originally pitched. DAOs is something that Vitalik originally pitched. It was a proof of concept for many years. And I think the last cycle proved on all those ideas that they have product market fit. Maybe the only product market fit that we see in crypto is all those ideas under the DeFi umbrella, right? So
Yeah.
perpetuals are very big magnet. Lending is a very big market. It doesn't even require any price action. It always has activity. It always has usage. Stable coins are growing, definitely have demand and product market fit. What I see in this cycle is that people stop talking about specific ideas. It's
Yeah.
all starting to be techniques that incorporate many other Legos. So we thought about the Legos 2 cycles ago. We validated all those ideas last cycle. This cycle, we're thinking how to combine everything. So we're starting to think about abstraction, chain abstraction, account abstraction, intents, which is another way of saying like interoperability and abstraction, bundlers, sequencers, scaling with this technique or scaling with that technique. Doesn't really matter. We're really thinking about combining those things together. I think people are right that we've built too much infra. We don't have any more scaling issues. We don't have any more, I don't think we have any technical issues anymore. We just don't have enough demand.
Yeah.
Businesses don't use blockchains. And consumers, they stay away. Who that live? Investors, whether they're small or big. This is what's driving this space, and I think it needs a really. I know it's not nice to say, but you need a really strong bear market to put things back on track, in my opinion. Because we did overbuild some of the infra. So what Fuse is trying to do is not to rethink or reinvent the wheel. We just understand that that zk is probably going to be in the roadmap for every big chain. It's
Hmm.
already there. This is why we chose like this category, and Polygon is just a really good partner, and we're really happy. And we went for QuickNode because we always had trouble with running our infra at scale, and we need professional operators. It's not like our community can compete with Amazon. I think our community can build really amazing stuff. Some people in our community should be node operators and others should have different roles. I don't think that you need a million validators to run Fuse. So we don't try to replace Ethereum. We don't try to be more decentralized than Ethereum. We want to be somewhere between Ethereum and Visa, a sweet spot in the middle.
You said a really good point, or you mentioned a really good point, that right now people are not even talking about any new cycle like NFTs or DAOs or stable coins.
Exactly.
They are very much focusing on concepts and tech, which I think in a way is really good, but they people have just gone ahead of themselves by creating too much tech where we don't even have
Yeah.
people to use, where all of them are just I mean, each ecosystem is just running behind and is just trying to get the mind share of that single small group of developers rather than growing that group of developers, which I think you are focusing on. You are focusing on
Yeah.
getting those big businesses into blockchain. Because
Ma- ma-
you talk about being the Visa of blockchain, where you envision processing transactions at scale, and that's possible by bringing those bigger partners, bigger players on chain.
Absolutely. And I also think that if we zoom out a bit and look at what people are building and exciting stuff in the space, I think it's definitely, you start to get more hopeful because somewhere can see that the technological, like, it's really hard to explain how things are moving fast in a perspective of a decade and how they
Yeah,
move slow in a perspective of like a year, right?
yeah,
So when you look at a decade, you say, okay, 10 years ago, my previous startup had to spend all of its runway, at least for the first year, to build an Explorer. And today you get Explorer one click out of the box. So that makes me really hopeful. Like things that were really impossible to imagine suddenly get almost trivial. And like, unfortunately, we're still not in a place where everything is easy and everything is fast and everything works really well. But I do think we're trying to solve problems for the 1% instead of the 99%. Like very common issues like interoperability. Interoperability is only a pain for for very few million of people that know how to access MetaMask. I think it reached the glass ceiling. It's not going to grow from this usage anymore. It's growing the past year from institutions that pouring money into it through MPC products. But I think MetaMask has reached a glass ceiling, and extensions reach the glass ceiling, and teaching people to use and writing like 12 words on paper reach the glass ceiling. I think this is not the future. I don't think the future is people using ledgers and stuff like that. The future is biometrics. The future is using your phone instead of cash. And I think the institutions understand it. The smart money understands it. The developers, unfortunately, I think, do in love with the idea of rebuilding the financial system. But I think it's not the case. You do want to use your money in the real world. You don't want to be building castles in the sky and inventing money that you can only use there in your fantasy. That's not the objective. Real world asset. This narrative, I think, is one of the strongest in this cycle. But you can see that it's not completely different than Deepin. It's not,
yeah.
they have an overlap. It's not completely different than from account abstraction. It's not completely separated from zk. So my point is that the narratives that we have today are pretty much all overlapping, and they have, I think, we have another cycle before blockchain will go fully under the hood and fully transparent, because this is what I understand. This is what I understand from looking at a perspective of a decade.
That's a very good and interesting point of view you said. And I think we as an industry should not be hating the traditional tech or the tech which is already out there. We should be working with it to bring blockchain to masses. For example, as you said, we already have those biometrics and everything in our day-to-day devices. For example, Apple already has this wallet access platform, right? Where you can, I think, where you can technically integrate your wallets and your creds will still stay on your local device. That's what happens with all your Apple biometrics and your wallet cards and everything, right?
Again, I have a philosophical answer because I think that we talked about this exactly, about trusted execution computing or trusted execution environment, TEE. This idea that we can have this on the phone. So Apple actually worked on it for, I think, 10 years ago. So that was already planned. There's a lot of crypto magic on this hardware. But the problem with the issue with Apple is that nobody really knows what's under the hood. It's not really open source, and it's kind of
Yeah.
boring. So nobody's like, it's not something that will get headlines. Apple released some new crypto feature like 10 years ago. The problem we have with crypto is that when people say Bitcoin or say Ethereum, they mean three things. They mean a network, a technology, and a currency. It's not always that you need the currency to use the network. You not necessarily need the network to use the technology, right? So private
Yeah.
blockchains forked Ethereum shamelessly. Did it qualify as using Ethereum? Maybe not, but it was using Ethereum technology. So I think until people realize that you could use Ethereum technology even when using Solana, so the way I see Solana is basically vertical integration of Ethereum ideas without all the Ethereum legacy. That's basically Solana. I would say probably that technology, when it's talked about, it's usually sexy and it's not working yet. Things like AI, for instance, those are like technologies that didn't find sustainable revenue yet. This is why we talk about it. When everybody, first everybody talk about it, nobody's doing it, and then everybody's doing it and nobody's talking about it. Then crypto becomes really boring because it's really
Yeah.
it's a game for math with kids. But I shouldn't pour money on something that some math kid created. I think the days of a single person team are long gone. The days of developer led product. We see much more product led teams. It used to be developer led teams. We see the space maturing, and that means only one thing. That means that the technology needs to get under the hood, and nobody should even mention it because nobody knows what algorithm Google
Yeah.
uses, and nobody cares. All the big companies, all the big tech innovated on UX. If you go one by one, Google, Apple, Microsoft, Windows, all of those innovations were all about user experience. They were never about the tech. They were never about the algorithms. It's more how they interact with the real world. So this is what we're trying to do at
100%.
Fuse.
100%. And once the space is mature enough, even developers don't care about what's under the hood. For example, now when you are developing something, you just, for example, if you are a Node developer or JS or TS developer, you just install a library via doing npm or pnpm. You don't care what's under the hood of the library. You just care that it works and it gets your thing done. It gets you from A to B, or it gets you a certain result. You don't,
Yeah,
a lot of time you don't care what's under the hood until obviously you get errors and then you have to fix compatibility issues. But most of the time you don't care what that library does under the hood or what the tech it's working on, which
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
was the point you were trying to make.
Yeah, absolutely. And with AI, it's even worse. Yeah. Then you have like no interaction with the code really.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
no direct interaction. Yeah.
No, 100%. I couldn't agree more. Mark, I mean, that was a very good conversation, I think. But on the ending note, I think our audience will also be interested, and I am also interested to hear from you. What do you envision the future of the Amber chain? You already mentioned the what you think the chain will be, and how you want to operate it, or how you want the community to operate it. But what will be the step one and step two towards that, towards bringing that mass adoption, or towards bringing that Visa like volume on chain?
We're doing quite a lot of changes. So first of all, 5-year-old chain, we need to refresh our tokenomics. We cut our inflation to zero. We changed the tokenomics so it's incentivizing people to migrate to the new chain. We're gonna keep the old chain alive, and it's very resilient. It's very, easy to run. We want the community to decide what to do with it. We think it's a good thing to have like an experimental, sexy new L2 and a stable, resilient L1. Have them in parallel for a while, just for the transition period makes total sense. Once we migrate, we're starting to get new players on the new chain, because the new chain has easier, I would say, it's an easier way to get things like Aave, Morpho, DeFi protocols that would otherwise have trouble to launch. We also might have like alternatives. We have the Graph on the old chain and Stargate. Maybe we'll have new players on the new chain. This is why we launched the Builder Grants program. One of the things that I really believe in is that every EVM needs to have DeFi and bootstrap liquidity. So that's the plan to focus on in the next few months. Before you have liquidity, businesses will never use it. And this goes for any type of blockchain and any type of customer. Like, you don't really have anything to do with an EVM if it has no liquidity. So first thing is to bootstrap liquidity, migrate everything to the new chain, get new players there, relaunch the token. So we have a pretty busy year.
And we are here to support it and excited to partner with you and the team on upcoming initiatives, upcoming campaigns, whatever we have planned for the future.
Sounds good.
And Mark, do we have a tentative, I won't say date, but a tentative period around which you think the team will be launching the mainnet?
So it's a really good question. I don't think it's depending on us. That's unfortunately the case. Like, you don't want to rush it, but we'll probably need to redeploy the testnet one more time, because we're testing Avail and we're testing a lot of other stuff. We're testing our light client, the new client that we want the validators to run. Those things need to work before mainnet, and we can't really rush it. So unfortunately, my guess
100%.
is May. My guess is May, but it's also depending a lot on QuickNode.
I'm sure the team will make sure to launch it as soon as possible. But as you said, there needs to be a lot of due diligence. There needs to be a lot of battle testing so that the users or the end users, whoever will be using the chain, which will be developers again, will have the best possible experience, and they get a finished and robust product.
Yeah. Also, I think when we launch the new product, we're going to deploy our flagship product on it, which is really, I would say, our superpower is building account abstraction on mobile. You need an L2 for this, because you can
Mhm.
really abstract away a lot of stuff that wouldn't otherwise be possible. You don't want to just sponsor transactions. This is not enough. You need a full stack solution if you really want to do vertical integration. You need to own the entire stack. Unfortunately, there's no other way. You can't really say, okay, I'll build the base layer and 30 different companies will build the stack and somehow the experience will be good. So in the real world, we need to really think from the customer to the business to the info provider. The entire stack needs to make sense. And then we
Yeah.
can bundle all of it and create a good experience. And this is what we want to showcase on the new Ember chain. So look forward. Like, one of the first things we're going to do is deploy a demo that will show the power of this chain. It's not about speed. It's really about everything working together. The unit economics of a transaction, but also the user experience. Everything has kind of like a common thread.
Thank
That's
you
it.
so much, Mark, for
Thank you,
coming in
Sahil.
and speaking about Amber. And I hope we will do this more in the future with maybe Polygon team and maybe Avail team once
Yeah,
we have the
definitely.
mainnet live. So we will definitely do a bigger stream with the Fuse team, with QuickNode's team, with Polygon's and Avail's team once the mainnet
And
is
I
live. And
and I'll show you how the experience looks on mobile, because this is like like showing the stuff on the phone, like just plugging it in, is really like the aha moment, because you're saying, okay, that's Web 2, but you
yeah,
explain how you made it non-custodial. I think this is the real magic, because you need to be very, very technical to understand how to build this, and we want to make it easy for any developer to build stuff like that.
100%. And I think our audience will be very much interested in that. So let's do that.
Perfect. Thanks, Sahil.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Talk soon. Bye bye.